Aloha! Welcome to 3 Levels of Enlightenment. This is the second program at the third level in a series sponsored by the United Galactic Federation of Planets. My name is Merlin and I'll be your tour guide. We're coming to you from the Gilbert Ray Campground in Tucson Mountain County Park here in Tucson, Arizona. Standing to my right is my good friend Roy, and on my left is his partner Dale. Roy and Dale are giant saguaro cactuses, magnificent creations of God that are found in this part of the world. We're joined by other fascinating plants like prickly pear cactus, barrel cactus, jumping choyas, palo verdes, mesquite, and many other beautiful creations of God. We also have coyotes, mountain lions, lynx, bobcats, deer, rabbits, snakes, quail, roadrunners, doves, pigeons, hummingbirds, and lots of other exotic wildlife throughout this park. Both this park and the Saguaro National Park next door are great places to visit, as well as the old Tucson movie studios across the road and the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum just down the road. Over the past 12 years, my wife Moana and I have been given information concerning our world and future events. We always share this information with everyone we know, but when the event occurs, they then forget and say, "Why didn't you tell us?" By producing these videos, we can now say, we did tell you. We intend to produce about 5 dozen programs. The information in this particular program, which is entitled, Who's in Charge, may have some grave implications. But this information is not meant to frighten or scare you, it's merely meant to inform you. There's a reason for all the unexplained events that are happening in our world today. From the predictions about 2012 to the oxygen readings in Los Angeles and San Francisco of 12% and in Tokyo of as low as 7% when the oxygen should be at 21%, to earthquakes, flood, tsunamis, hurricanes, megastorms, winter tornadoes, and thunder snow, to disappearing honeybees, and I have a bee right here with me right now and I don't know what he's going to do. Just don't want him to sting. To disappearing honeybees, mass extinctions, birds falling from the sky, fish kills, and marine animal beachings, to the answer if oil is fossil or abiotic, to women getting pregnant after radical hysterectomies, to near-death experiences, UFOs, aliens, and ghosts, to the 2008 stock market crash, the 2009 market rebound, the 2010 market flash crash, and all of the bankruptcies and job losses, to the Oklahoma City federal building bombing, all of the events of 9/11 and the Iraq and Afghan wars, to the reason that Saddam could not have had nuclear weapons and why the terrorists can never nuke the United States, to the presidential elections of 2000 and 2004 and why George W. Bush had to be president of the United States. All of these events can be explained and you have a right to know what's happening. But if you take nothing else from these programs, we hope you will come away knowing that you and the rest of us are truly loved by the millions of others beyond our world. In the words of our sponsors, may this message fill you with joy, serenity, and determination. I'd now like to explain why these programs are entitled The 3 Levels of Enlightenment. Our sponsors are sensitive to the feelings and beliefs of all of you. Our sponsors do not want to offend anyone, so as a precaution, the programs have been sorted out into 3 categories, levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 is for all audiences and is rated PG-13. No one should be offended by the information offered at this level, but parents are cautioned that this level may not be appropriate for young children. Level 2 is only for people who believe in angels and is rated R. It is not for children, and adults who don't believe in angels may also be offended and are cautioned not to watch. Level 3 will definitely offend certain groups and is rated XXX, triple X. This is absolutely not for children and is likely not for some adults. Those groups that will be offended include people, go away. I'm being attacked. The groups that will be offended include 1, people with a strong belief in religion, 2, people with a strong belief in science, and 3, people with a strong belief in our government's explanations for events. Anyone in these groups should not watch this program. If you tune in after the program has started, when the level was first announced, you'll still be able to identify the level being discussed in several ways. On the board behind me are the words level and number, representing today's program. This is a level 3 program, number 2. In the tray in front of me is a placard with the letters XXX. This is a XXX program. During the programs that are levels 1, you will see PG-13 in the tray in front of me. And for programs that are level 2, you'll see an R in the tray in front. In addition, you can determine the level of the program by the shirt that I'm wearing. Today is a level 3 program. I have on a white shirt. Whenever it's level 3, either my speaker or I will be wearing a white shirt. If it's a level 1 program, there'll be a Hawaiian shirt. And on our first set of level 1 programs, we had this shirt for program number 1, which talks about the reversal of the planet Mars, the reversal of its rotation. This was the second program, which talks about the reversal of planet Earth. And one of the effects will be reversal of the poles. That's what that shirt involves. No, this one talked about yardangs. This was the 5th program about the reversal of Earth. This one talks about salt. And then this program, which talks about earthquakes. So those are the Hawaiian shirts involved with level 1. Then at level 2, you'll always know that it's level 2 because either the speaker or I will be wearing a plaid shirt. This was a shirt used for program 1 at level 2, which talks about angels. Or it may be a blue plaid shirt like this one, a yellow plaid shirt, or whatever. Different types of plaid shirts. So you can always determine the level if you tune in late and you can't see the signs by the shirt. If you see a white shirt and you're offended by the 3rd level, don't watch. Please evaluate what levels may cause you to be offended and then watch accordingly. This disclaimer will be provided for the first few programs at each level, and then it will be discontinued in the interest of saving time. We look forward to posting these programs on the internet, where we're often limited to 15 minutes per program, so in order to pack in as much information as possible, time is of the essence. I'd now like to share with you our humble story. My wife and I have homes on the Big Island of Hawaii, in Northern California, and here in Tucson, Arizona. It turns out there's an important connection between all 3 locations. My wife is pure Hawaiian. She's a 6th great-granddaughter of the first king of Hawaii, Kamehameha the Great, and she's a great-grandniece of the last king and queen, King Kalakaua and Queen Liliuokalani. Her genealogy turns out to be another very important part of our operations. My wife served in the Army in the 1960s and is a Vietnam-era veteran. She's a graduate of the University of Hawaii and operates her own business in Hilo, Hawaii. I was born and raised in Michigan in the palm of the hand. My family moved to Southern California in 1964 and then moved to Northern California in 1966, where I finished high school and then went to college. I served in the Navy in the 1960s and am also a Vietnam-era veteran. I then served 23 years in the Air Force Reserve from the 1980s until the mid-2000s. I've been retired from an airline for more than 8 years, and for over 35 years I've been a pilot. I've worked as a captain, a co-pilot, and a flight engineer, and also as a flight instructor and an aircraft mechanic. I've worked for companies as a chief pilot and a director of operations. I've logged over 30,000 hours of flight time in everything from 2-seat Cessna 152s to 10-seat Piper Navajo Chieftains and Beech 18s, to 20-seat de Havilland Twin Otters, to 180-seat Douglas DC-8s, to 250-seat Boeing 767s, to 300-seat Douglas DC-10s, and to 350-seat Lockheed L-1011s. I'm also retired from a fire department of a major city on the West Coast. I worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, as an aviation safety inspector between the fire department and the airline. All of my careers restricted me from having a full beard or long hair, but our sponsors say that it's necessary for me to let my hair grow out, and it's a pain to maintain. Nice to have short hair. This is the second marriage for both my wife and myself. We celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary on March 25th, 2011. My wife has 6 children from her first marriage, and I have 4 children from my first marriage, plus we've been blessed with 22 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. As an airline pilot and as a fire captain, I've had to make quick and logical decisions because people's lives were often at stake. So I've had to have my feet planted firmly on the ground. And I'm one of the last people you'd expect to be involved in any kind of New Age thinking. So even though I may seem like an unlikely candidate for this job, my wife and I consider it a great honor and privilege to have been chosen to receive this information over the last 12 years. My wife and I have been given knowledge that is of critical importance to mankind, and we're more than happy to share it with you. I'd like to remind you once again that this is a Level 3 program, and those of you that have a strong belief in religion may not want to watch this program. You may be offended. The name of today's program is Who's in Charge? Before we get into that, I'd first like to refresh your memory about the Noahide laws. Noahide is spelled N-O-A-H, Noah, Ark, and I-D-E, Noahide laws. After Noah disembarked from the ark, God gave him a set of 7 laws. And these laws were not only for Noah, but for all the people of earth. And they're similar to the 10 Commandments, but not exactly the same. The first of the laws, was to have no idols other than God. God was to be the only God. The second law was a prohibition against murder. Killing was bad. Humans killing humans, not allowed. Third one was theft. Bad to steal. We've heard that one before. Theft was wrong. The fourth law was unnatural sex. Sex obviously was encouraged, but nothing that was unnatural. Number 5 was taking God's name in vain. Blasphemy. Have to respect God's name. Number 6 was eating the flesh of live animals. No live blood. You got to kill it before you eat it. And number 7 was just laws. If you're going to make any laws, make sure they're just. So those were the first 7 laws given to man. They were given to Noah, and they were for all mankind. Well, here comes the big question. Who's in charge? God gave Noah 7 laws when Noah was around. God gave Moses 10 commandments when Moses was around. And the pharaohs had a god whose name was Isis. She was a woman. Well, at one point, Moses went to Pharaoh on God's orders and told the Pharaoh, "Let my people go." And the Pharaoh said not only no, but hell no. So they had a little contest between their staffs. Moses had a staff, and he threw it on the floor, and it became a snake. And those of you that have seen the 10 Commandments, the movie The 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner, you may remember this scene. The Pharaoh then commanded his priests to throw their staffs on the ground, and they became snakes. The snakes weren't fighting to determine who was the most powerful. Both the Pharaoh and Moses were able to turn their staffs into snakes, so they both had the same kinds of powers. The real question was, who was the most correct regarding the fate of the Israelites? And as it turned out, the snake representing Jehovah was the most correct. That snake ate the other snakes. But it wasn't about power. Where did the god of Pharaoh come from? Where did Isis come from? if the God that gave the Noahide laws to Noah was the God of all the people of the earth, then could it be that Isis was that God and that the Pharaoh was worshiping the God of Noah? If that's the case, then who's Jehovah? Well, as you read the Old Testament, you find out that Jehovah was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jehovah told Abraham, your people will flourish on the planet. There was no Jehovah before Abraham. Abraham came sometime after Noah. And Jehovah was the God of the Jews, of the Hebrews, of the chosen people. When Jesus came along, Jesus was the son of Jehovah. Jesus was for the Jews. He was not for the Gentiles. Moses received 10 commandments from Jehovah. Those 10 commandments were not for the Gentiles. Those were for the Jews. Prior to Abraham, there were only two classes of humans on the earth. You had the ruling class, which were pharaohs, and they did have some supernatural powers. And then you had the commoners, the working class. Somewhere down the road, somebody decided there needed to be a third class. There needed to be another group of smart people, kind of like in between the pharaohs and the working class. These folks would be the teachers, the doctors, the nurses, the engineers, the smart guys that could make things and do things. They were the chosen people. And they needed their own God. They needed a separate set of rules and their own personal God. Jehovah was the God of those folks, and he gave them the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments were for the Jews, not for the Gentiles, for the Jews. The Gentiles already had their own set of rules, the Noahide laws. Well, if Jehovah came after Noah, then who was the God that gave Noah the 7 Noahide laws? Had to be before Jehovah. So now we've got 3 gods. We've got the God that gave Noahide laws to Noah. We've got Jehovah that gave the 10 Commandments to Moses. And then we have the pharaohs with their god Isis. Well, what if they're all lower gods? They're for their own specific group. And maybe there's somebody higher. Well, back in 1947, up on the northwest corner of the Dead Sea, near an area called Qumran, where the Essenes had a university 2,000 years ago, a young shepherd lost a sheep up in the hills, and there's caves all along that area of the Dead Sea. So he went up to search for his sheep, might have been a goat, and he looks in this cave and he sees all these ceramic jugs. So he goes and throws some rocks at them, and they break. And when he looks at what's inside, it's full of scrolls, these old parchment scrolls. So he takes the scrolls down to his uncle, who then examines them and takes them down to the market and starts to sell them. And that became the Dead Sea Scrolls. These are ancient manuscripts from the time of Jesus that have been unaltered. Now remember, the Bible has had to pass down through 2,000 years of human hands, and maybe the Bible has had some alterations done. Maybe a lot of the Bible is not correct. As a matter of fact, a very good friend who's now passed told us most of the Bible has been altered. It's been corrupted. It's just like that 7th commandment we talked about in the last program. But the Dead Sea Scrolls have been untouched for thousands of years. Those might be considered a more reliable source of information. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, it talks about a God. And the name of this God is the Great I Am, or the Supreme Being. Well, if 2,000 years ago they knew of a God who was called the Great I Am, and this God is essentially everything of our world. This God is the dirt, the plants, the animals, and us. Everything on this earth is made up of this God. Well, that would sound like a much more powerful God than the God of Noah, the God of Moses and Abraham, or the God of the pharaohs. And the name of that God is the Great I Am. The Great I Am. And then you have the God of Noah, the God of Moses, and the God of the pharaohs. Well, somebody's got to be in charge. And we've had lots of debate about whose God belongs to whom. In the world today, the Christian religions have all adopted Jehovah, the God of Moses, as their God. But Christians are not Jews. The God of Moses, Jehovah, is for the Jews. If anything, the God of Christians should be the God of the Gentiles, the God of Noah, not the God of Moses. Plus, all these religions have personalized God. So if I were to talk to Christians and it wasn't the Christian God, they wouldn't want to hear it. If I was to talk to Muslims and it wasn't the Muslim God, they wouldn't want to hear it. If I talk to Buddhists, not the Buddhist God, lose them. Same with the Hindus, the Jews, all those groups. They all have their own personal God, and maybe they don't really know who the one true God really is. Now, in the first program at the second level, where I talk about angels, I mentioned how my friends, Roy and Dale, these two giant saguaros behind me, know the one true God. And all the other plants out here in the park know the one true God. Plus the birds and all these animals know the one true God. But humans don't. We're all confused. We've got all kinds of gods. But the Dead Sea Scrolls tell us there is one God that is everything on this earth. And maybe the Dead Sea Scrolls are a much more reliable source than anything else we've got. I'm here to tell you this is the one true God, the Great I Am. And another name for the Great I Am is the Supreme Being. And the one true God. Now, you folks may have noticed, if you've watched the first two programs at this level, that the sign in front of me does not have the United Galactic Federation of Planets initials on the front, as it does in levels 1 and 2, but instead it has the letters O, T, G on that sign. Guess what OTG stands for? One true God. So from now on, at level 3, instead of having UGFP in front, we have OTG. Our human species has now reached maturity after the discovery and the confirmation of a planet in a habitable zone around a star 20 light years from here. Last October 2010, scientists discovered and confirmed that there's a planet around a star where water can exist in liquid form. The basic necessity for life anywhere is water in liquid form. And we now know that every star has a habitable zone, an area a certain distance out, where water can exist in liquid form. If you get any closer, the water boils. You get further out, it freezes. We are in the habitable zone for our sun. Venus is too close, Mars is too far away. Water cannot exist in liquid form on either of those planets. But here on Earth, we have water, we have life. Well, when we confirmed that there are other planets, and I've been told that since October, they've now confirmed 1,500 planets that could have water, that exist in habitable zones, That is where we reached maturity. Up until then, we didn't know. We thought maybe we were the only ones in the universe. Now we know there could be others. At that point, we've reached maturity, and now all these other planets are just dying to welcome us. They've been waiting for this moment. We've had UFOs everywhere for the last 100 years. They could not contact us. They couldn't make contact because another law of the universe is that you do not interfere. If you have an intelligent species that's working its way towards maturity, you got to leave them alone. Gene Roddenberry pointed that out in the Star Trek series. It was the prime directive. The Enterprise could not interfere with a planet that was not yet mature. We're mature. They're here to welcome us. And the great news is, as we begin to venture out and explore this galaxy and visit all these new planets, we're going to find out there's only one true God. When we leave this planet and go to these other planets, there's no Christians, there's no Jews, there's no Hindus, there's no Buddhists, no Muslims, none of those guys. There's just one true God. That's who's in charge. And that's the point of the show. The great I am, the one true God, the supreme being, is the God of the galaxy, God of the universe. So on that note, I'd like to wish you all aloha and ahui ho. Until next time.